Welcome back to another episode of the Amateur Hour Podcast. I'm Jacob, and Jack is joining me today.
Hey, guys.
And we're going to be talking about the most underrated player in the NHL. We've done this episode related to the NBA, but we decided to switch over to leagues and go to the NHL. We're just going to get right into it. Jack, you have a few names, but who is your first name for this time?
My number one and my first is Alex DeBrincat. He's right now in his third year on the Chicago Blackhawks, and I can't see why people are still underrating this guy. I mean, even going into the league, he had only 3 years in the OHL. All of them had over 50 goals and 100 points. He absolutely tore it up in the O, and he's doing that in the NHL. I don't see why he's still flying under people's radars, honestly. And it seems like a lot of people still don't even know he's in the league, which is crazy to me if you're not a big fan of hockey.
Yeah, I can agree with this guy. I mean, when I think about underrated players in leagues, for me, it comes down to when you hear the name, it's the kind of connotations that the name evokes along with it. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at stats, obviously you can value it based on that. But for me, it's like, you ask the average NHL fan about a player, and it's just the feeling and the connotations evoked around the name. Like, just the vibe the guy gives off. And the guy does not give off the fact that he scored 76 points in 82 games last year. That is very impressive.
Does he give off the vibe that he scored 41 goals?
41 goals, that's pretty ridiculous.
Yes.
Like, this guy definitely flies under the radar. Great talent for the Blackhawks. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, 41 goals, we're talking what? Ovechkin, Stamkos?
That's ridiculous.
We're talking top.
That's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. That's one of the top in the league. Like, there's not much like you can say about a stat like that. Like, that stat just jumps out at you. That's insane. My first one is gonna be Alexander Barkov. A lot of people rate him. Like, obviously he's a great player, but what people don't realize is how good he is. Because last season in his 82 games, he put up 96 points.
Wow.
So he almost got to the 100 point plateau. And same thing for this guy. Even though people think he's great, he's just that much better than people expect. And what I think is a really underrated aspect of Alexander Barkov is that, the notion around the league is that he's a great leader. So even with like the point output he puts up, I believe he's a former second overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
Just an absolute talent, great on and off the ice. Like, I mean, even like he's stuck in Florida and he's still putting up these numbers. It's absolutely ridiculous.
And I think that's a big reason why you don't hear him about it a lot. He plays on Florida. I mean, you never hear about Florida. And his hands especially are incredible.
Yeah, he's
Very good
he's a great center, great player. Like, 100% underrated. Even though he's great, he's just better than you think.
Mm-hmm.
Jack,
I'd say my next one. He had a huge year last year. Elias Lindholm. I think he's kind of went under the shadow his first few years in Carolina. Obviously not great place where they were back then. But last year he went to Calgary, put up 78 points on Calgary. I always kind of knew him, but he definitely flew under my radar. Yeah, he had 78 points last year.
It was because it was such a huge jump. He went from 44 points to 78 points in 1 year. That was probably why there was such an underrated aspect about his game, but absolutely right. An amazing player, definitely pivotal in Calgary's amazing regular season. Not so good at postseason, but in the regular season, he was great. They were great. He was a big part of their success. I mean, 27 goals is pretty impressive, and 78 points in 81 games. It's always impressive when you're putting up that many points in those amount of games. Like, if you're anywhere close to point per game, like you got your top tier talent in the NHL, and this guy fits into that category. So far, so good this season as well.
Yeah, you could argue he was an outlier, but he's also got 10 goals already this year. Like, in 18 games
for sure. That is a high talent. You have one more. You said. I want to do mine. I want to do my second one last.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you do another one?
All right. Yeah, I'll get into one. I was gonna save it for an honorable mention, but
just get into it. I'm going last.
All right, Mark Stone. Mark Stone, amazing player. I think, he's pretty rated, but I still think he is so good. He's a superstar, and not a lot of people have really accepted that yet. Yeah, on Ottawa, my whole life I've been seeing him, watching him. He's amazing player, both ends. Amazing two-way forward. I mean, he did so much things for the Sens when they weren't good. I mean, he was a big part in their playoff run. A few years back, I always thought he's just a really good leader, two-way player, great in the dressing room, and really a player I'd want on my team. Unfortunately, no longer for the Sens. I think they could have got more for him, but I mean, already last year, great year, putting up 73 points. Doesn't sound like a lot, but you have to consider he is an exceptional two-way player. That is, his game is two ways.
The one thing I will say about this, like I know you said he was in a bit of an honorable mention, but for 3 years in a row, he has been the runner-up for the Selke, which is the best defensive forward.
Yeah.
So absolutely, last season, he was runner-up for the Selke award, and he was also 12th in voting for the Hart Trophy. So, like, I get you said it was an honorable mention, but like just because of that, like he does get a bit of recognition in that aspect, just because he has been up for awards. But I think it is just getting to the point now, where
he's until he got to Vegas, I think, really.
Yeah, like once he went to Vegas, that's where it really like jumped out how talented this guy was. I think because he was on Ottawa, he flew under the radar, and now that he's on Vegas, it's a little more exposed.
Yeah.
And obviously, he's second for Selke last year. Very impressive, just behind Ryan O'Reilly. So I think this guy does fly under the radar a little bit. So I'll give you this. That's a good pick. But the last player we're going to talk about is my personal pick here. You can talk about bias all you want, but I'm a firm believer in this pick, and I have been for a few years. Frederik Andersen, the goaltender for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
And
absolutely underrated. Jack, I know you do not like this pick.
I strongly disagree.
Then why do you disagree?
Maybe just because we're surrounded by so many Toronto players, but it just seems like everyone loves him so much. Everyone talks about how great he is, but I don't know. He hasn't really done much for me.
I'm going to tell you straight up, I watch a lot of Toronto games. I watch every playoff game. Like, I watch when I can. But Frederik Andersen gets hung out to dry on a game-by-game basis by the Toronto defense. And it has been that case for the last 2 seasons. 2 seasons ago, he faced the most shots in the NHL by a goaltender. And last season, he faced almost 2,000 shots. Again, the year before, he faced 2,211, most in the NHL.
Just because you face a lot of shots doesn't mean you're good.
I'm not saying that. He gets hung out to dry on numerous occasions. And he is, like, arguably the most important factor in a lot of the Maple Leafs' success. There are many games.
Minimal success.
In the postseason.
Yeah.
Don't come firing shots at me like that. Maybe lose track. On game-by-game basis, there is evident proof that this guy should be in the conversation for the Vezina because how important he is to the Leafs. I know it's not just a numbers thing for me, but his numbers are pretty good. I'll give you that. The numbers don't really show that he's a huge underrated talent, but there's for the sheer amount of shots he faces and like just the ability to keep the Leafs hanging on in games that they have no business being involved in. That's what puts him on that pedestal for me because he does not get recognition of one of the NHL's top goaltenders. But I am a firm believer that he should be among that conversation.
Honestly, I liked him most when he was on Anaheim. And as being a Kings fan, I really had a lot of respect for him when we played him, but I don't know, he's not doing it for me, Toronto. I mean, the numbers are consistent, but I don't think he's anything exceptional. I wouldn't say he's underrated by any means.
I think he's exceptional. Like
underrated though.
Yeah, underrated. I don't think he gets the recognition he deserves. I really thought he should have been like in the as a finalist for the Vezina last year, and he was
only
10th
one
in voting.
Only one shutout.
Like again, it's not a numbers thing for me. Like, I get like what you're saying about the stats, but like when you watch games, the Maple Leafs win a lot of games that they should not win because of how good Freddie Andersen plays. And in the playoffs, like he had a couple bad games, but there are games there where he kept us hanging on in those games. Like I am when you pitched this topic for me, like I drove right to Freddie Andersen because I've been thinking this for years about how underrated he is.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask you this then. Where is he? Top 3 in the league? Goaltenders?
I don't think, if we want to talk about just sheer talent, I'm not sure if I'll put him in that. I don't think, no. I'm not going to kid myself here. I don't put him in the top 3 for goaltenders in the NHL. Top 5? There's a case. Definitely top 10. Like 100% he's top 10.
Top 10's not that.
No, yeah. I know. I can make a case for him being top 5.
All right.
Like that's a whole other conversation. I can make a case. Top 3 would be. I don't think I can put him there. But there's a case. Top 5. I really appreciate like what Freddie has done for the Leafs. And you know what? like this point is really going to drive in 2 years when his contract is up, because he's making $5 million a year for the Leafs. His cap is at $5 million for the next 2 seasons, including this one, and he's going to be making a lot more than $5 million at the end of this contract. And I don't think the Leafs are going to be able to afford him. So no. I talked about this in another podcast, or we talked, like me, Clarkson, and Nico, when we did one. We talked about the Leafs' candidacy for the Cup, and a big thing about it was their window is 2 years because of Freddie Anderson, and I don't think we're gonna be able to keep him because of the money he's gonna be making.
Teams really don't throw that much cash at goalies typically until like last year, Bobrovsky's contract and stuff like that. But I mean, up until then, like you didn't. The best player on the team could be a goalie and it would still win. They'd still have the a lower contract than the.
I agree absolutely. But he's worth more than $5 million, and a team's gonna give him more than $5 million.
I give him 6 max.
I can see him making more than 6. I really think a team is going to want to lock this guy. Like, the Leafs are going to struggle to keep him with the amount of money they have tied up in their stars. And when that happens, like, I'm saying, like, I'm not really here to argue about the contract and how much he's been making. I'm here to say that you're going to really miss Frederik Andersen if you're a Leafs fan when he leaves, or if he leaves at the end of 2 years, because he is way more important than you think.
I'll have to see.
I don't think I'm going to be able to convince you, and you're not going to be able to convince me.
No.
So we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at stalemate. You know what? If you're listening, let us know what you think about Frederik Andersen, because I honestly want to hear the opinion on this, because I think he's a great goaltender. You think he's just, he's good.
It's funny because I'd almost give him an overrated status.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm ending it. I'm not starting. But thank you for listening to another episode. We like doing this hockey content. We're trying to bring more hockey content in the very near future. You're funny.
I thought you had one more.
Oh, no, that's it.
Oh,
Only have two. I wanted to end on that. Just
all right.
Get that discussion. But more hockey content coming in the very near future. Tune in again for some more daily content on the Amateur Hour Podcast.